There is a strange silence that arrives when nobody is checking whether you are becoming the right version of yourself. It is the silence of realizing that life has stopped giving you instructions. No one tells you what the next step is. No one tells you whether you are early, late, behind, or exactly where you are supposed to be. And at first, this feels like freedom. Until one day, it starts to feel like being alone with a life you were never fully taught how to read.
For most of childhood, life comes with markers. You know when a year begins, you know when a year ends. You know what it means to pass, to fail, to move up, to graduate, to be ready for the next thing. Even when you are confused, someone else usually seems to understand the structure. There are teachers, parents, deadlines, report cards, permission slips, school calendars, people asking where you were going and when you will be back. And maybe at the time, all of that felt suffocating. You wanted space. You wanted people to stop asking questions. You wanted to make your own choices without someone looking over your shoulder. You wanted the freedom to become yourself without constantly being measured.
But adulthood does not always arrive as a clear moment you can point to. Sometimes it reveals itself through ordinary details, a bill with your name on it, a room you have to clean because no one else will notice, a decision no one can make for you, a birthday that does not come with a new stage attached to it, a milestone that looks important from the outside but feels strangely unfinished on the inside. And slowly, you begin to realize that what disappeared was not just childhood, it was guidance. It was the comfort of being watched closely enough that someone would tell you if you were going the wrong way.
People often talk about adulthood as responsibility, as paying for things, as working, as being tired, as having to figure everything out. But maybe the hardest part of growing up is not responsibility itself. Maybe it is the loss of checkpoints, the loss of visible confirmation, the loss of someone standing nearby, quietly translating life for you. Because when you are younger, even your confusion has a container.
You may not know who you are, but you know what grade you're in. You may not know what your future holds, but you know what the next exam is. You may feel lost, but there is still a hallway, a schedule, a bell, a person telling you where to go next. Then adulthood removes the hallway, and suddenly life becomes wider, but also less legible. There are fewer signs, fewer deadlines that mean something, fewer people who can tell you whether you are doing it correctly. And that is when freedom becomes complicated. Because the same freedom that lets you choose your life also leaves you without the old comfort of being directed.
One of the loneliest things about becoming an adult is realizing that nobody automatically knows where you are anymore. Not physically, but emotionally. People may care about you, they may love you deeply, they may want good things for you, but they are no longer tracking your life in the same way. No one sees every small effort, no one notices every private disappointment. No one knows how hard it was to make a simple decision, answer a message, apply for something, leave something, begin again, or move through a week that looked ordinary from the outside.
And because no one is watching that closely, it can feel like parts of your life are happening without a witness. You make choices that change you, and the world barely reacts. You survive something difficult, and the next morning still arrives like nothing happened. You reach an age you once imagined would feel certain, and instead you are still carrying questions you thought would have expired by now. It can feel unsettling to realize there is no official version of adulthood waiting somewhere ahead of you. No single point where the confusion disappears and you finally feel caught up with your own life. No invisible adult who arrives inside you and starts knowing what to do. There is just you, still uncertain, still changing, still looking around sometimes, hoping for a sign that you are not making a quiet mess of your life.
And the hardest part is that you may have wanted this. You may have wanted independence more than anything. You may have dreamed of being left alone, of not being corrected, of not being questioned, of finally having the right to choose your own direction. But nobody tells you that privacy and reassurance often disappear together. When people stop directing you, they also stop confirming you. When people stop managing your life, they also stop narrating it. And suddenly, you are free. But you are also the one responsible for deciding what your freedom means. This is why some milestones feel emptier than expected. You get the job, you move out, you graduate, you make the decision, you leave the place. You become the age you used to think sounded grown, and for a moment, you wait for the feeling to arrive. The feeling that says, this is it, this is adulthood. This is the place where you finally become sure of yourself. But the moment may not answer you in the way you hoped. There is no applause from life, no final stamp of approval. No one saying, yes, this is exactly where you are meant to be. The day simply continues, and you are left with the unsettling realization that a life can change completely without ever feeling finished. At some point, you begin to understand that adulthood is not the opposite of childhood. It is what happens after the old forms of guidance disappear.
And maybe that is why growing up can feel so emotionally confusing. Because you are not only becoming independent, you are also grieving the version of life where someone else seemed to know the shape of things. Someone else knew what papers needed signing. Someone else knew when the appointment was. Someone else remembered what came next. Someone else noticed when you were not ready. Someone else could say, "Not yet. This way. Keep going. Stop here." And even if you resisted that guidance, some part of you may still miss the feeling underneath it. The feeling of being held inside a structure. The feeling of being someone's responsibility. The feeling that if you got too lost, someone would come looking. There is a tenderness in admitting that, because missing guidance does not mean you want to go backward. It means there was comfort in being known before you had to become your own map. And maybe the grief of growing up is not just that life becomes harder. It is that life becomes less witnessed, less explained, less marked by clear beginnings and endings.
You start living through seasons that no one names for you. You go through transitions that do not come with ceremonies. You outgrow dreams without announcing it. You become different in ways no one claps for. You lose parts of yourself so gradually that even you do not notice until much later. And through all of it, you are expected to keep choosing, to keep interpreting, to keep deciding whether this is a detour, a mistake, a beginning, an ending, or simply another stretch of road. That may be the real threshold. Not becoming someone who always knows what happens next, but realizing that no one else knows for you anymore. Maybe adulthood begins in the quiet moment when you stop waiting for someone to point toward the next door and realize that life has become something you have to name while you are still walking through it.